All right, everybody, we welcome you back. Kinner and Kev live here from Great American Ballpark. It's opening day. Excited to be with you here this morning. Again, we want to thank our sponsors over at Frickers for taking time and jumping on and partnering with us to allow us to bring you this special live from Great American Ballpark. Kev, I've never been to Great American Ballpark, or I've been to Great American Ballpark. I've never been to opening day. This is pretty exciting stuff.
Oh, man, this is super cool. I've never been to opening day either, not even growing up in Cleveland, going to the Indians/Guardians games all those years, going to those games. I've never been a part of opening day. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, let's keep the show moving, bringing on our next guest, Hall of Famer, a voice that everyone's very familiar with, the one and only Marty Brennaman. Marty, it's been a while, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good, Justin. Nice to be with you and Kevin. Big day in Cincinnati today. No question about that. I've often said, as calendar years go, this is the biggest single day in every calendar year, whether the Reds got a pennant contending team or whether they've got a team that's going to struggle all year. It doesn't take away from how big this day is today. And thank God we've got good weather.
You get to enjoy opening day in a little bit different way now, obviously a couple years into retirement. How do you compare and contrast what opening day is to you now as just a fan showing up to the ballpark like the rest of us versus when you were calling games for, those couple decades you were involved?
Yeah, that'd be four and a half decades to be exact. I guess the biggest single thing is I can leave anytime I want to. If I don't like the way the game is going, I can get the heck up and go downstairs and get in my car and go home. I just enjoy it more. That's not right. I always got pumped up for opening day, and it was great to get back on the air again. Even though I did a lot of work in spring training, it was great to get back to doing games that meant something. And but I don't miss it. People have often asked me, your last game was in September the 26th of 19, and do you miss it? Not one time have I ever missed broadcasting baseball when I walked out of that radio booth that afternoon. I've never missed it. The retirement, everybody should have as good a retirement as I've had up to this point. And so I'm just going to enjoy the game today, and hopefully Hunter Green will be on top of his game and can take care of Pittsburgh and do it rather quickly.
Real quick, I just want to jump in, not all of the rule changes, but one in particular, just of course, with the obsession of speeding up the game. I'm not sure where you stand with the pace of play, but I've always argued that, when I watch college football, I've never once said watching Ohio State football, being a big Buckeye fan, man, I've had enough of this Ohio State game. I wish it would hurry up and end. If I go to a movie and it's a 3.5 hour movie and it's really, really good, I never once say, man, I hope this movie hurries up and just wraps up. When the content's good, I want more of it. I don't want to spend my money to get less of it. I want more of it. Is the obsession with speeding up the game, is that being overblown a little bit? Obviously, it's working with the pace of play, with all the rule changes and the pitch clock and everything. It's working, but what is it? What does working mean? What is it exactly fixing? Or do you think fans actually think baseball's too long?
Oh, absolutely, without any question, I do. I think it's a slam dunk that people do not want to sit in a ballpark and watch a 3-2 ball game that takes 3 hours and 20 minutes to play. There's too much downtime in the game. What baseball is doing is implementing rules to get back to the game the way it used to be. And I think it's criminal that they have to implement new rules in order to speed the game along time-wise, to improve the chances of stolen bases and greater aggressive base running. I think all of these rules are designed to do just those things. And I think it's unfortunate. The one thing they'll never say is that they overplayed their hand as far as analytics and how much it's going to add to the game. Analytics, if you'll pardon the expression, has added very damn little as far as I'm concerned. There are certain aspects of analytics that I agree wholeheartedly with. The majority of them I don't. They've taken away individual thought on the part of players. And now with these new rules being implemented, they're giving the player that back. And I think that's very, very important. I couldn't be happier with the fact that as far as the Reds games were concerned in spring training, they were 25 minutes quicker on average than they were last year. And I was out there and I saw 4 games. I love the pace. I love the rhythm that the hitters got into, that the pitchers got into. And amazingly to me, more than anything else, I thought there would be a lot of problem with veteran pitchers who had never been exposed to the shot clock or the pitch clock. The young pitchers who came up through the minor leagues had been experiencing it for 2 or 3 years now, so there was no big deal for them. The veteran pitchers came prepared, and there were very few infractions called where a pitcher was ready to pitch and a hitter was not ready, or vice versa. I was amazed at how little impact, negative impact, that it had on the game. So I'm 100% in favor of the pitch clock. There's no question about that.
So you're not in favor of 3.5-hour movies or 4-hour college football games and all that?
Well, I'm not opposed to 3.5-hour movies if it's a good movie. I'm not a big fan of 3.5-hour football games. I have freezing my butt off watching a football game. After a while, I lose patience, and I don't care how good a football game it is. So, a really interesting thing is that it's really going to impose, I think, great constraints on the broadcasters, because there's not going to be a whole lot of time to tell stories anymore. Right. You're going to have 15 seconds with the bases empty or 20 seconds with somebody on base. You can start a story, but you're going to have to be interrupted every 15 or 20 seconds because of the pitch clock. But no, I don't. I'm less inclined to get bored by a 3.5-hour movie unless it's a good movie. And then I'll sit there as long as it takes to watch the end at the end of the night. I don't care about sitting in anywhere for 3.5 hours to watch a football game, a baseball game. I'm not a big fan of that.
Marty, who do you think the pitch clock is going to benefit more, the pitchers or the hitters?
Kevin, that's a great question. I have not. Well, you know what? I think it's probably going to benefit the pitchers, maybe a little bit more than the hitters, because, as long as the pitcher is in a good groove, you take the kid pitching today, who's an exceptional talent. There's no question about that. If he starts this game off this afternoon against Pittsburgh, and he is in a good groove from the get-go, that's when a pitcher wants to work quick, and I think it will benefit him then. But over the long run, I think what they've done is maybe try it as best they could to balance it a bit. If the powers that be would concede that the pitchers are going to have something of a benefit, the fact that they've outlawed the shift, which is going to be a tremendous benefit to left-handed hitting pull hitters. Not so much, you don't have that many pull hitters if you're a right-hand hitter than you do if you're a left-hand hitter. That's going to benefit the left-hand hitters. So they're hoping, I think, that things will balance out. But my scratching the surface to some extent, I would have to think you got to give the nod to the pitcher over the hitter.
What are your thoughts about the huge bases now? Everybody's complaining about how big the bases are, and if people actually are going to steal bases, will those records actually stand up against back in the days records of stolen bases just because they're the size of pizza boxes and things of that nature?
I'm in favor of the larger bases. Again, it's designed, as you said, to increase the stolen bases. It's also designed, they feel, that with a bigger base, it's going to minimize or reduce the possibility of any kind of injury at second base because of a collision involving a runner and a second baseman or a shortstop, depending upon who's covering the bag. And I don't have a problem with that. I feel the same way about personnel in baseball as I do in the other sports. When you have stars, you want to do everything you can to keep those stars healthy. Because that's what people are going to come see. They're going to come see Hunter Green pitch. They're going to go see Ohtani pitch and hit, and all the great names in the game. So if you can minimize the possibility of debilitating injuries, and you do that by a number of things, but one of which is increasing the size of the base, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Marty, you mentioned Shohei Ohtani. I promise we'll get to the Reds in a moment.
No, that's okay.
Shohei Ohtani, never seen anything like him. I know I haven't, and he's really kind of taken baseball by storm. It's been a while. We see in the NFL, stars come in, they take up. We watch the Joe Burrow effect in Cincinnati. You've seen that up close and personal. We see it in the NBA. Guys come in and make an immediate impact. We haven't seen a player like Shohei Ohtani come into baseball and just literally take the sport by storm. Just your thoughts on Shohei Ohtani, and how, you've seen it all in this sport, but have you seen anything like Shohei Ohtani before?
I don't think I've seen anything like him in any sport. I'm a huge Michael Jordan fan. I know the argument involving LeBron and Michael. I am the most prejudiced human being that ever lived because Michael and I went to the same institution of higher learning. So I'm a Michael Jordan fan until the day I die. He, to me, is the greatest basketball player in the history of professional basketball. Not so much in college because Dean didn't turn him loose until he got through Carolina and went on to the NBA where they said, have at it, young man. There's no one who comes to mind that would equate, in my mind, the all-around abilities that Shohei Ohtani has. I mean, when you can go out and pitch like he pitches and have an ERA under 2.5, and then you go out and hit 20-some home runs and hit close to 300, I don't know anybody that could compare with that. I don't care who it is. Tom Brady's arguably the greatest quarterback in the history of the National Football League. He did it based on his arm. This kid has every possible tool imaginable. I think he's a great individual to represent Major League Baseball and all the good things that are about the game. He's a good-looking kid. I think he speaks a heck of a lot more English than he wants anybody to know. That's fine with him, whatever makes him comfortable. But when they talk about paying to go see a player play, I think people are less inclined to do that in baseball than they are to go see Joe Burrow play quarterback with the Bengals or to see big names in the NBA play or whatever the case might be. Baseball people are less inclined. They more often than not will go see a team rather than go see, I'm going to the ballpark tonight to see an individual. They're paying to see that kid play. And I just marvel at what he does for what I think is the hardest single sport of all to play well at the big league level. When he struck out Mike Trout, that was a slider that he struck him out on, and that was God sent because I have never seen a pitcher throw a slider like he threw. Mike Trout had no chance. I mean, just good morning, good afternoon, and good night. And somebody quoted a figure to me the other day that said that is the 6th or 7th or 8th time in Mike Trout's Major League Baseball career, encompassing however many at-bats, that he struck out on 3 pitches, and he struck out on 3 pitches swinging. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
We have Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman with us here. The thing that's interesting with all the changes in baseball coming up this year, every team will play every team now moving forward. I know that's always been a hot button issue. I know for me, just from a fan perspective, the fact that, in the NFL, I know you don't get to see every star, but you get to see it more often than not. The NBA, you get to see every star come through an arena at least once throughout the season. I know baseball, the traditionalists, they don't like to mess with it, but I think this is going to be one of the bigger changes. When I'm voting for the All-Stars, and I haven't seen half the All-Stars or half the players in the league because my team's in the National League, I think that's always been a problem. I think one of the big rules that's not being talked about, or one of the changes I think that's going to have the biggest impact on baseball, in my opinion, could be this one, where now as a Reds fan, I'm going to get to watch every star either come into Great American Ballpark or at least get to watch them on whatever regional sports network takes over, for the Reds on TV as far as that's concerned. But I think that's big. The fact that we talk about Shohei Ohtani, the fact that we maybe never would get to see him hardly at all, if ever. Now we get to look forward to seeing him every single season, whether it be at GABP or on television. Your thoughts on that change to the sport as well?
I'm good for it. You remember way back when they went to interleague play and back in the 90s, and people raised Cain about how it's going to take away from the importance of the World Series. That never panned out. Logically speaking, it certainly was an argument for people who were opposed to change. But it didn't happen. I think this is a wonderful thing they're doing because now people can legitimately see every single great player in both leagues over one regular season and one regular season after another. So I don't have a problem with that. I know the conversation among baseball people, which I've been involved with, nobody has offered any negative comment at all about it. I think anybody in the industry realizes that this is something that will do nothing but benefit baseball. And I guarantee, I'd love to know what the ticket sales are right now for the Reds as far as the coming of the Angels are concerned when they come into town with not only Ohtani, but also with Mike Trout. I mean, you have to throw him into the mix too. So I think it's a great thing. I have no problem with it. I think whoever came up with the concept should be patted on the back, because I think it'll be great for the individual teams involved. And I think as an industry, it'll be super for the game of baseball.
All right, it's opening day. Now, obviously, spring training just wrapped up. Who are some of the young standouts that we can expect to make an impact on the roster this season?
Well, I think more so than right now, Kevin. I think I was out there for 10 days and saw 4 games, and the kids that are coming, not that they don't have good young players, this team does. It does. When you got the outfielder and Friedel and the Fraley kid that came up in the Seattle trade, and it took them a year or so to get their feet wet and get comfortable. And they had both of them had good springs. I think they'll be good baseball players. I think they're still hoping that Jose Barrero has found himself, because I'll give the Reds credit for one thing. They don't let guys go quick. I mean, I never saw a player benefit more as long as the outfielder. What was the kid's name they finally let go this past year when he had the one great month? The Punisher had the one great month and hung around for 3 years. Yeah. They will give you a chance, and I think they want Barrero to succeed. He looked like a better hitter in spring training. Now he's got to do it when it counts. And I think the kid's got a chance to be an outstanding player, but he simply has to make contact better than he has in the past. The Steer kid at third base, I think, is going to be a solid player. We know about Tyler Stevenson. We know about Jonathan India, who is looking to bounce back after a year in which he was injured more than he wasn't last year. They're still waiting on Nick Senzel. But the kids like the kid Encarnacion Strand, Christian Encarnacion Strand, and obviously Eli De La Cruz, Matt McLean. I saw the first spring training game I saw. Strand was in the lineup, and his first 3 times up, he hit the ball as hard or harder than anybody I've ever seen in a Major League Baseball uniform. He had a first pitch 3-run home run in the first to left center. He hit a line drive that never got higher than 12 feet off the ground, that got over the center fielder's head, and he hardly had enough time to turn around and look. The ball hit off the center field fence, and the third time he just missed a pitch, and the center fielder caught it up against the fence in deep left center field. He can hit big league pitching, I think, right now. I don't think there's any question. He's an incredibly mature kid. He has a great idea when he goes to the plate. If you pitch him away, he's going to hit the ball to left field. He's not going to try and pull everything. He's the biggest problem he has right now is his defensive play or the lack thereof. And they sent him out with one idea in mind, and that's to work big time on his defense at third base. They played him also a bit at first. Once they feel like he's improved enough, and I'd be shocked if he doesn't hit at wherever they start him. I think they're starting him and Cruz with the AAA club in Louisville. I think those kids both have a chance to be with the team before the season's over with, given the fact that a lot of people are confident that they're going to play well at the minor league level, well enough to get them up here. Brandon Williamson was the mainstay as far as a pitching prospect is concerned that they got from Seattle in the Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez deal. He did not have a good spring, but I don't think that's going to take away from the probability that he's going to be a good big league pitcher once, God forbid, he doesn't come up with any kind of arm problems. They're ranked the 5th best farm system in baseball going into the season. And that's largely due to the efforts that Nick Kroll made when he had to dump salary and get rid of all these guys making a lot of money. And the kids that they got back in the trades were all minor league prospects, whether they be from Seattle or Minnesota or whatever the case might be. Now, the bottom line is that, I don't care how good a prospect you are. Hunter Green, I'll use it. He was the number 1 pick in the world. He's still got to go out and get it done. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you see first-round draft picks that don't make it. So to just assume that this is all going to work out because these kids have such incredible reputations, they still have to go down. They still have to go through the maturation process. They still have to work on the things that they've been weak in. And if they do that, they're going to have a goodly number of these kids that get to the big leagues and become major league players that will be productive. One name I want to throw out there also, I don't think he's ready yet, but boy, when he's ready, he's going to be something. And that's a kid, Cam Collier, who went to junior college when he should have been a senior in high school. He graduated early. He went to junior college. He went. He was drafted by the Reds, and what has got to be down the road, I think it'll bear fruit. I think he was a 17th or 19th round draft pick because everybody did not think that he was going to sign, and he did. Incredibly talented kid. His dad played minor league baseball. He's going to be an incredible hitter. It won't be this year, I don't think, but I think he could be in the big leagues as early as sometime in 2024. So I love the people they got. But now these kids got to prove that Nick Krall's decision to accept them in return for whoever he traded has to turn out to be something that will bear a lot of fruit.
Marty, following this, when they hit the reset button a few years ago, that seemed to be Reds fans on the edge of their seat, to be pushed off and to be as frustrated as they are, and rightfully so. I get that. It is interesting where we're at with this right now, though, because I'm trying to be optimistic. There's a lot of positives. I think Nick Krall has done a fantastic job. I think the last rebuild in the mid-2010s, I do not think they did a very good job, and that's not just looking back at it. I don't think anyone felt they were doing a good job when they were really moving on from guys like Brandon Phillips, Jay Bruce, and Frazier, and those guys. This feels different, but it also feels different because the fans, they're not having it. They don't want to follow arms. They don't care about that. They just want wins. They're sick of it. You have, again, you talked about 4.5 decades, calling games for the Reds and following this team as long as you have. Have you ever experienced the Reds fans be this frustrated and this upset at this point, especially after last year's "where are you going to go" comment that, of course, took off like wildfire? Where are you at with how you assess the fans right now?
No, I think they're probably as irate as any group of Reds fans, whatever the fan base might have been, whenever it might have been. I try to remember back in 1982, I guess it was, when they lost 101 games. I don't remember the fans being as bent out of shape then as they are now. But interesting, the correlation that you draw between the two 100-loss seasons. They lose 101 in 82. Obviously, people were not happy, not to the extent that they are now, but coming to that club in the next couple of years were people like Eric Davis, Barry Larkin, Paul O'Neill, Tracy Jones, Kurt Stillwell. All of these kids came to the big leagues at once, and they turned out to be a core of players that would ultimately help this team win a world championship in 1990. I think you can draw the correlation between that talented bunch of young players and the talented bunch of young players that this team has coming in the next couple of 3 years. So I think it's an important year for this team. And I give the Reds a lot of credit. They're positive. They feel like this is going to be a better team than we saw last year. But let's be honest about this now. They can't be a whole lot worse. So to say, yeah, we're going to be better in 2023, and I'm saying, what does that mean? If they had lost 90 games last year, and then it might mean something. I don't know that it means anything now, but I do think as far as a one-loss record is concerned, if they stay healthy and they get some people back, they can have a better year. Now, the question is, what's a better year? The over and under in Las Vegas is 65.5 wins. Do I think they'll be better than that? Yes, I do think they'll be better than that. How much better than that they will be? I don't know. They've got to get people like Lucas Sims back. They've got to get TJ Antone back. I felt like the bullpen would be one of the most improved areas of this club going into this season. And when I expressed that feeling, it was largely based on getting those two guys back to anchor the bullpen. Now, neither one of them are going to open the season on the active roster. I think the bullpen's got some problems, but I also think the starting pitching has got some big problems. I give a lot of credit to Green and Lodolo and Graham Ashcraft because they pitch like the big three that they're supposed to be in spring training. And you've got Hunter pitching tomorrow. You've got Lodolo pitching on Saturday after the off day Friday, and then you've got Ashcraft pitching on Sunday. They were very good, and they were supposed to be, and they were. But now they've got some problems as far as that number 4 and 5 spot are concerned. Connor Overton, who was with the club briefly last year before developing problems that knocked him out for the rest of the year. He was sensational in the short term last year. This spring, he had a hard time getting people out. And Luis Sessa will be the number 5 starter to begin the year. So I think they've got some problems with those number 4 and 5. And if they can't get them straightened out, then they're going to have a long season that would reflect in many ways about the way things went in 2022. And I'm a little concerned about scoring runs. Unless these guys can step up and swing the bat, and they get Joey Votto back, not only fairly quickly, but also the Joey Votto that we saw a couple of years ago, then they're going to have problems scoring runs. But if things come together for them, then I think they'll have a better season than they had last year.
All right, the Hall of Famer, Marty Brennaman, awesome enough to join us here on opening day. Marty, today is my first experience of Cincinnati opening day. I cannot wait. Do you recall your first opening day experience in Cincinnati? What was that like?
It was memorable. I mean, I get the job replacing Al Michaels, and I go to spring training, and we did a full spring of broadcasts. So by the time opening day came, people knew who Marty Brennaman was, and I think they knew what they could expect. And so, they opened the season against the Atlanta Braves on April the 4th, 1974. And, I was overwhelmed by 55,000 people in a baseball park. I was more overwhelmed by that than I was the prospect of Henry Aaron tying Babe Ruth's home run record. And as I think a lot of people know, if they know anything about my career, I called his 714th home run 4 hitters into my career as a Reds broadcaster. He had a 3-run home run in the first inning off Jack Billingham to tie Ruth's record. It was a thrill for me. And quite honestly, I don't know of another Major League Baseball broadcaster that ever broke in under such historic circumstances. And it was not only that, but the game was a game that was decided in extra innings. Tony Perez had a home run off Phil Niekro late in the game. Niekro was brought in to pitch in relief, and they brought him in, and Perez had a home run off him to tie the game. And then they win the game when Pete Rose in the 10th or 11th inning, I forget which now, scored from second base on a wild pitch. And they win by a run. It was a thrill for me. It was, I don't feel like I screwed up the call of Aaron's home run. And thank God for that, because I'll say this until the day I die. When people ask me who the all-time home run king is, I'll say Henry Aaron. With all due respect to Barry Bonds, who I think cheated. Henry Aaron was one of the classiest guys I've ever met. And for me, people like it or not like it, they said, who is it? I said, Henry Aaron's the all-time home run leader. And I'll believe that until the day I die.
You talked about being opening day for 4 decades. What are some crazy things that you've seen from the fans, from the stands, maybe at the parade, maybe after the game? I know the fans get a little wild. This is basically a national holiday.
There's some of the things, Kevin, I can't talk about. Some of the things have been something now. I'm not kidding you. Well, yeah, no, I'll tell it. I'll try and keep it.
I could edit this out.
Okay.
Or I can clean it up. But we're totally.
You mean on opening day or just period?
Opening day.
Oh, no, opening day. People have pretty much maintained their decorum on opening day, honoring the fact that it's the greatest opening day in baseball. But outside opening day, I've seen some wild stuff.
Please share.
Yeah, go there.
There was a college night one night.
Yeah.
This is back in the 80s, and they come, the college kids come, and if they're legal age, they can drink beer all night long. And Normally, when they had college nights, it was a rather rowdy night because kids would unwind, whether they come from UD or UC or Xavier or wherever they came from. During the course of the game, I don't know what inning it was, Dave Parker was playing right field. Dave has been a dear friend of mine forever. I think he ought to be in the Hall of Fame, and he's not, but I think he should be. He's playing right field, and somebody in the stands threw out a sex toy. And Dave reacted to that like it was a spitting cobra. He didn't want any part of it. I mean, not a chance. He was not going to get, I'm not lying to you. He put more distance between himself where that thing landed and where he was. He wanted nothing to do with it. And poor member of the grounds crew had to come out of the field, pick that thing up and take it off the field. And Dave and I talk about it all the time, even today when I see him, because it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen on a baseball field. The day that a kid was at the old ballpark at Riverfront, there were an area of about 8 rows that were directly below us. And the next level down was the seats behind home plate. And there was a college kid. The most amazing thing I think I might have ever seen in a baseball game. Somebody hit a foul ball back over the screen, and this kid, I don't know, sophomore, junior, and thank God he was put together and he was strong as an ox. He reached over to grab the ball over the railing, and he fell. He fell over the railing, and as he was going down, he reached back up and grabbed the railing and hung there.
Wow.
I've never seen anything like it in my life, because you're talking about body weight that's hurling over that steel railing, and he was able to reach back and grab the railing and hung on to the baseball and hung on long enough for them to get him back over the railing and back into the seats. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
Real life Spider-Man.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I swear to goodness, I can't imagine somebody that strong. And he was able to pull it off, and he pulled it off with a great deal of class because he hung on to the baseball. It was also the time when Joe Nuxhall and I went up into the red seats behind home plate to broadcast, and we did it as a promotional stunt. The club thought it was a great idea, and it was a tremendous idea. And they built us, a counter to work off of, and we were sitting right behind home plate up into the top level of the ballpark, looking down with fans sitting all around us. And we had security because you would expect to have that. You don't know what you're going to get from fans for whatever the reason. And we did it 2 different times. I don't know, it was like 1977, 78, something like that. A lot of people up there smoking joints and having a big time. But they were the best too. They were so cordial and conscious of what we were doing. It was never a problem, and it was something that turned out to be incredibly popular as far as the fans were concerned.
Wow. Well, Marty, we asked for 10 to 15 minutes. You doubled that. Thank you. Beyond appreciate it. You do need to send us out with this, though. Joey Votto's legacy is what on the way out? Because it's a very weird one, because we know his numbers. He's an all-time great for the Reds for those numbers. But, when you think of Pete Rose and those great Reds from decades past, you always associate it with World Series. You associate it with winning. And unfortunately for Votto, outside of the early 2010s, really what led to that MVP and him getting that contract, it's been all losing since. How do you balance what his legacy is for the Reds?
I don't know. That's a good question, Justin. He's had a number of not so good seasons. And I don't think that's going to help. And I will say this. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think that. But with the emphasis being placed as heavily, or the importance being placed as heavily on analytics as they have been, there are numbers in his career that will certainly enhance his chances, most notably on base percentage, which is very, very important. I think that one day, I think he will be, has a great chance of being a baseball Hall of Famer. But I don't agree with people when they say it's a lock. I think that we'll have to sit back and watch and see how it works out.
All right. Hall of Famer Marty Brennaman, opening day. Awesome enough to hang out with us here today. Marty, thank you so much for hanging out with Kev and I. We're excited to be here on opening day, our first experience here. You've been there for a few. It won't be as memorable as your first opening day, I promise you that much, but we're hoping to make it pretty close.
Well, I'll look for you guys down there in this mass of humanity today.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Kevin. Enjoyed it, man.